gives a fuck about an Oxford comma? By Great 78.
Who gives a fuck about an Oxford comma? I've seen those English dramas too. They're cruel. So if there's any other way to spell the word, it's fine with me. With me.
Chapter 23. Bad Reputation. Draco. Still Monday, November 1st, 1999. Peckwater Flat 307, Christchurch College, Oxford, England. He woke up on the floor to the sound of a door opening. Brief panic spread in goosebumps across Draco's skin before he realized it was Granger standing in the threshold of her bedroom, looking confused. She blamed everything on the alcohol, as he figured she would. As she should have. She was right. He'd kissed her because the stiff drink that he'd craved when plotting with the Gryffindors had lowered his inhibitions. But that didn't erase the fact that he very much wanted to kiss her, drink or no drink. Feigning fatigue, Draco told his flatmates to go ahead to class without him, though it really wasn't feigning if it was true, he supposed. His rest on the floor in front of Granger's bedroom door could hardly be called rest at all, and he had never learned the kinds of healing charms that could completely erase the soreness in his shoulders from lying uncomfortably on the floor all night. Less than 20 minutes later, he strolled up Diagon Alley, having apparated into the janitorial closet at nearby Welch Chapel, a derelict church on Charing Cross Road. He earned more than a few curious stares from the breakfast crowd at the Leaky Cauldron when he entered. To be fair, he'd kept low profile in visiting Britain since his rapid trial, nearly a year and a half before. He would not be surprised if most people assumed him to be rotting in a cell in Azkaban by now. A part of the plan that Draco had not brought up during his planning sessions with Potter and Weasley the day before was going to Gringotts Bank and visiting his vault. Even though he knew that it was only a bit of show, a ruse to fool the Minister for Magic, he could not help the thrill of excitement that centered itself in his belly at the thought of looking through the various rings in his vault to find a suitable one for Granger. He had no intention, of course, of proposing to this witch, at least not any time soon, his subconscious hedged. But after the way she had kissed him back last night in their kitchenette, his imagination was off and running the instant he let his mind wander. Gods, the things he would do with this witch, the life he could imagine with her. It was easy to get carried away in daydreams, but he could not lose focus right now. The wild ride through Gringotts Bank was both thrilling and nausea-inducing, as always. When they arrived, he stepped out with Lagnold, the goblin assigned to the Malfoy vault, and shivered a bit. "Colder down here than I remember," he remarked to the short creature, who was now placing a hand on the door of Vault 714. "The dragon is gone. She kept it warm on cold days," Lagnold said bitterly. Draco smiled to himself ruefully. Of course she had. The vault presented his next conundrum. The collection of Malfoy rings was vast and varied, the choices seemingly endless. Eliminating the cursed objects that might hurt a non-pureblood helped cut through the clutter a bit, though Draco was more than a little pleasantly surprised by the number of rings remaining. Apparently he wasn't the only Malfoy who had considered wifing a half-blood or a muggle-born. He finally chose a ring with a teardrop gold topaz stone, surrounded by diamonds. The gold colour seemed perfect for a golden girl, and the warm depth of the stone was reminiscent of Granger's eyes. Even though Draco knew the witch would likely never even see it, he knew it was the perfect ring for her. He dropped the ring inside its wooden box into his pocket, but as he was about to leave, a silver lynx galloped into the vault, circling him menacingly before stopping and speaking in Kingsley Shacklebolt's deep, measured voice. "Mr. Malfoy, I'm pleased to learn that you have made your way to Gringotts to search your vault for a suitable betrothal gift. I trust you've found something acceptable. Please, let me know when she has accepted your offer of marriage." The links faded away, and the vault, which had felt cool before, now seemed downright frigid. He assumed that the trace the minister apparently had on him would find him here, but it made the appearance of the links no more comforting. He has one on Granger, too, Draco thought. But how? He needed to ask someone with a bit of knowledge in this area. Pym. A pup next to him. His elf wore a tiny pair of trousers with a matching vest and a Hindley. His small driving cap was perched between his ears. At first, Pym had thrown a right wobbler at being given his freedom, but the ability to collect hats seemed to have won him over in due time. "Yes, Master Draco?" Lagnold, be a good chap and wait outside, will you?" Draco asked of the goblin. Lagnold dutifully nodded and left the vault. To Pym he said, "Can you bring Harry Potter here?" "Of course, Master Draco." He was gone in the crack, and Draco was forced to wait nervously. Another, slightly louder crack broke the stillness of the vault as Pym reappeared, now holding fast to the wrist of Harry Potter. "What the absolute fuck, Malfoy? I was asleep!" The groggy man before him wore a pair of striped, misbuttoned pyjamas, and his glasses were perched nearly sideways on his face. If possible, his hair was even more spiky and ridiculous than usual. Draco shook his head in wonder. Potter may have gotten lucky enough to live the charmed life of the chosen one, but Draco was fine with being a societal pariah, if the alternative was waking up looking like a neglected toddler every day. To the chosen one, he said only, "It's well after 9 o'clock, Potter. The early scroot gets the flower worm, they say." "I'm going on nights this week, you wanker." Potter grumbled, yawning hugely. Apologies, then. This won't take long. In our discussion yesterday, there was an important bit we didn't get to. I'm hoping you have some insight." Briefly, he described what he knew of the trace that Shacklebolt apparently had placed upon both him and Granger. "So, somehow, he knew I was here," Draco concluded. "I suppose I have to abide by it, even if I don't agree with it. I am still technically on parole. But how does he know where Granger is?" Potter frowned. "You, I understand. Magical law enforcement keeps track of convicted criminals. Well, their wands. Although, to be honest, that's not the most foolproof method, so I wouldn't be surprised to learn that they have other options. I mean, what's to stop someone from buying or stealing a new wand, or performing wandless magic?" "Right, and I haven't done magic with my wand since leaving the Leaky, but he knew I was inside my vault, so somehow he's monitoring me in a different way." "How is my location tracked? Is there really some sort of trace that the Ministry can initiate?" Draco asked. "There isn't." Potter yawned. "I asked when I joined the department. Putting a trace on a word is questionable, but possible." Draco nodded. "The taboo, you mean?" "Right, but putting a trace on an individual is generally illegal, not to mention nearly impossible. With all of the ways that a witch or a wizard can disguise, transfigure, and transport themselves, a trace would be rendered useless." He considered Potter's words. "That makes sense." "Exactly. For the criminal element, we do have wards around the entirety of the British Isles, so we know if you take a portkey. Likewise, flues are monitored in a very rudimentary sense. We don't watch every flue, only those we have suspicions about. But as far as moving from place to place within a city, not only are those kinds of traces illegal, they're also impractical. If anyone warranted that level of surveillance, they probably just need to be put in Azkaban," Potter said. "So there's no way of simply tracing a person, their magical signature, or some other such tosh?" Draco pondered. Potter removed his glasses and wiped them ineffectually on his pajama top. "Not that I know of. If there were, it would render the DMLE practically useless. Or we could simply trace the magical signature of whatever suspect we have and just apparate to them." The wizard snapped his fingers to demonstrate. "So what, then?" "Well, you could put a tracking spell on an object, and if the target carried the object on their person, that might work," Potter said. Draco stood stock still for a moment before running one hand through his hair. "I'm an idiot." "I already knew that," Potter replied with a half grin. "But why this time?" Draco shot him an ugly look before continuing. "At the beginning of the Michaelmas term, Shacklebolt told me to meet with an advisor, a squib who works on the campus. She gave me a pin and told me to wear it at all times, to put it on my money bag or my wand as a form of magical identification. She said it would allow me access to the magical buildings on the campus." Potter gave him an exasperated look. "And you believe that?" Draco clenched his jaw. "I had no reason not to trust her, Potter. She had an office on the campus," he said. The other wizard shook his head in disbelief. "Right, but magical buildings, by their nature, are visible and accessible to wizarding folk unless they're unplottable. Just by being a wizard, you'd be able to get inside." "I know that now, thanks, Potter." "Do you have this pin with you?" Without a word, Draco emptied the contents of his pocket, finding the gold pin attached to his money clip. Potter waved his wand over it. "Yeah, there's definitely some kind of localis charm here. We haven't studied those yet. I don't know enough about them to say which one, and I doubt I can break it, but there's definitely what this is." "So, what if this woman convinced Granger to wear the same type of pin?" Draco asked. Potter shook his head. "Hermione's too smart to fall for that." "But what if Miranda Perkins told her something different? Granger trusts authority figures, the academic types at least," Draco reminded him. "That's true. Wait, Perkins, did you say? You said she was a squib?" "That's right. In fact, Shacklebolt told me he said that he used to work with a relative of the woman, a brother, I think. Do you know him?" "Only in passing. Perkins works on the same floor as I do, but I've not spent much time around him. Ron's dad shared an office with him years ago, though. I'll see what I can learn. In the meantime, you need to find Hermione's version of this pin and get it away from her. Bring it to me in case I can figure out some way to modify it. You said he only comes when you're alone. If Shacklebolt is using this thing to trace her, then we need to make it look like she's with you, nearly all the time, until we're ready with the plan in place." Draco nodded, slowly. "Good idea. Once everything is ready, we'll apparate with Hermione's pin somewhere alone and leave it. Shacklebolt will probably show up soon after." Potter was staring around at the vault, taking in the fact that the two of them were standing in front of a large display of rings, necklaces, and tiaras. He narrowed his eyes thoughtfully, then turned to look at Draco in speculation. "Awful lot of jewelry here." Draco rolled his eyes. "Well, it is an ancient vault of a rich and powerful wizarding family, Potter. I have to assume yours has at least a small handful of pretty trinkets as well." "It does." Potter reached out a hand towards the row of rings in front of him, careful not to touch the actual objects, only the bits of parchment paper in front of them. He squinted at one of them through his smudged glasses. "Engagement ring given to Florinda Fawley Malfoy from Brutus Sebastian Malfoy. Interesting." A slight chill went down Draco's spine, but he forced a note of bravado into his voice as he sneered. "Is it really? My great-great-grandfather gave an engagement ring to his wife. Better call the prophet. They'll want to print that above the fold." Potter merely smirked. "I only mean there's a row of rings here, and one's missing right in the middle. The dust around all of these looks freshly disturbed, like someone was looking through them recently. Any reason that anyone would be looking at engagement rings in your vault, Malfoy?" Draco scoffed, rather unconvincingly. "Oh, if this fine display of deductive brilliance is what the Auror Corps has taught you, Potter, I shudder to think of the future security of the wizarding world." Was Potter's only answer. "You know, Malfoy. A lot of people think you're unredeemable." The smile that the Slytherin offered him was humorless. "More deductive reasoning, Potter. They'll have you in the head aura's office by spring." Potter raised a brow as if to consider it. "All I'm saying is, that day in your drawing room, and that night on the top of the astronomy tower, I saw something different than what the rest of the world saw. I'm not saying you were always a good bloke, but, like a wise man once told me, the world isn't split into good people and Death Eaters." "Huh!" Draco scoffed again. "Sounds like some Albus Dumbledore nonsense." "No," Potter said thoughtfully. "A cousin of yours, actually. Sirius Black." Draco was silent a moment before answering. "Never met the man." "You'd have liked him," Potter said. Draco said nothing. "Malfoy, Hermione and I, we didn't testify for you because we thought you'd fully changed overnight. We testified because we saw the possibility of change within you, and we thought you should be given the chance to make your own path." "Come off it, Potter. You testified because Kingsley Shacklebolt asked you to. I suppose he was making plans even then," said Draco bitterly. Potter shook his head. "Kingsley didn't ask us to testify." "What? Then why? We wanted to. Honestly, without you delaying and identifying me that day, we'd have all been dead. And if you hadn't given me your wand—" "I didn't give it to you, Potter, you took it," Draco protested. Potter laughed. "If you say so. All I'm saying is, other people might think you're irredeemable, but I've seen differently. You helped us then, and you're helping Hermione now, even if she doesn't know it." Draco was quiet at this. The scar-headed wizard took one last look at the row of rings with a single ring missing. "Just let me know when you're ready to take action on this plan of yours, Malfoy. The Shacklebolt plan, I mean." Draco nodded, then cut his eyes towards Pym. The dapper elf leapt down from the shelf upon which he'd been standing, polishing chalices. With nimble quickness, Pym grabbed the Gryffindor around the wrist, and the two of them disappeared with a pop. Musing over Potter's words, Draco reached into his pocket and withdrew the wooden box holding the golden ring. He didn't care if everyone else thought he was irredeemable. There was only one opinion that mattered to him. Did a world exist where she would ever accept this ring from him, in spite of his reputation? Could he ask Granger to lower herself to love him? Draco didn't know if she would ever agree to such a thing, but he worried that if he never found out, he would spend the rest of his life wondering. Harry. 12 Grimmauld Place, London, England. He gratefully left Malfoy in the Gringotts vault to return to his bed in the Black House at Grimmauld Place. He'd been in night training until 5 that morning, and was working on less than 4 hours of sleep. Still, the things that Harry had discussed with the Slytherin wizard rankled in his brain. Was Kingsley actually tracking Hermione? It followed to reason that he was, if everything else said was true. As much as Harry did not wish to believe it of the Minister for Magic, it did rather fit. Kingsley had been a member of the Order of the Phoenix, it was true, but he'd also been a Slytherin. Yes, he had not been the only one of that house that worked with the Order, but it was a truth that was hard to ignore. And Kingsley had mainly worked in the background during the war, never publicly declaring his support for Dumbledore, or for Harry, until he appeared at the Battle of Hogwarts. The enigmatic wizard had towed the Ministry line until almost the very end, even once Pius Thickness, Voldemort's stooge, had taken over as Minister for Magic. Had he only been biding his time, playing both sides in an effort to come out on top? After a few minutes of tossing and turning, Harry gave up on getting more sleep. Trudging down 2 flights of stairs to the kitchen, he rounded the corner and nearly keeled over in shock to find an unknown wizard sitting at the kitchen table. He fumbled for his wand, annoyed with himself to realize that he'd left it upstairs on his bedside table. "Who the fuck are—" Wait, we went to school together, didn't we? Thaddeus, Thornton, something? We met at New Year's. What the hell? How? Relax, Potter. I came through the flu, the wizard said affably, pouring tea into a dainty cup as Creature settled a tray of sugar, lemons, and milk in front of him. On the massive hob across the room, a skillet sizzled tantalizingly, the smell of bacon and eggs wafting their way. But how? That flu is warded against intruders, Harry spluttered. Pish-posh, intruders, the wizard scoffed, holding out a hand to shake. Theodore not. My great-grandmother was a black, and family always lets in family, Potter. Harry took a couple of breaths, trying to make sense of it before coming up with no reason not to reluctantly shake Theodore's offered hand. You still haven't answered what you're doing here. Why are you in my kitchen? Well, that's the easy part. Your kindly elf here offered eggs and bacon, and I did get up rather early this morning and missed my own breakfast, so... His heart was beginning to resettle in his chest, and not his throat. You're Hermione's flatmate, Malfoy's old friend. One and the same. And your fine elf Creature here knows me quite well, by association at least. Creature hurried across the room, balancing plates on his hands and arms that he magicked in front of the two wizards. Master Nott is a kindly, strong master, that any elf would be proud to serve, simpered the old elf, wiping away a tear from his rheumatic eyes. Harry, who trusted Creature's judgment of character almost as much as he trusted the judgment of Cornelius Fudge, found this endorsement less than useful. Yes, a Creature here is the father of my elf, Franklin. We were just commiserating over our mutual concerns about Franklin's willingness to serve, Theo said with a disapproving smile. Franklin was always a headstrong elf. He did not listen as a child, Creature intoned woefully. Theodore nodded. Well, he really doesn't listen now. Hearing problems, you see. Some sort of issue with his ears, I'm really not sure. Harry finally drew up a chair to sit opposite the man and picked up his fork. So, what are you doing here, Nott? I assume this isn't just a nostalgic visit to your old ancestors' stomping grounds. Call me Theo, and no, I've come to talk about our friends, Draco and Hermione, the other wizard said, swiping a slice of bacon through his egg yolk. What about them? Harry asked guardedly. Was this wizard here to register his disapproval for their association because of Hermione's blood status? Well, I don't know all of the particulars, but in conversations with Draco, I've gathered a few bits of information, and I know you're trying to help. I wanted to offer my assistance in that regard, if it's needed, with this whole Shacklebolt thing. Why? Harry asked with narrowed eyes. Theo looked uncomfortable. I'm afraid I'm the one that put Draco on Kingsley's list of people that owe him favours. You see, it was my idea for Kingsley to ask you to testify on Draco's behalf. After that, Draco knew that he was in Kingsley's debt, and I think that's probably why he agreed to spy on Hermione in the first place. Harry shook his head tiredly. As I told Malfoy, Kingsley never asked me to testify for him. In fact, on the day of the trial, he was actually trying to talk me and Hermione out of testifying. It was Theo's turn for befuddlement. What are you talking about, Potter? I asked Kingsley to speak to you before his trial even started. I thought that's why you testified. No, I thought it over for several days beforehand and had already decided to testify. Hermione as well. Theo's brows nearly met on his forehead. Kingsley told me during the break between Lucius and Narcissa's trials that it had been an arduous conversation. It was. Harry chuckled dryly. He practically ordered us into a private conference room, looking like he was about to conjure lightning. But he was trying very hard to convince us not to testify. He wasn't there to talk us into it. I got the sense that he was wholeheartedly behind the idea of Malfoy spending the rest of his life in Azkaban. The eggs on Theo's plate went forgotten now. You were going to testify? Without my interference? I didn't have to involve Kingsley at all?" he asked faintly. Harry nodded his head. "I was. We both were. Kingsley was quite adamant that we shouldn't, but at some point he finally relented. Remember, it was almost like he shut down, just gave up on it. At the time, I didn't think anything of it. Now I'm starting to wonder if he was already formulating a plan." "I wouldn't be surprised." The Slytherin grimaced. Harry sighed. "Okay. What kind of assistance do you think you can offer?" "That's the thing. I don't rightly know. I'm assuming that the two of you, along with Weasley, are trying to trap Shacklebolt into some sort of confession. You are there as a representative for magical law enforcement, to certify the confession. Am I right so far?" Harry eyed him speculatively. "How do I know I can trust you?" "You don't know, of course. It's well known that my father was a Death Eater, stuck in Azkaban for life. Good riddance, I say. But my mother was a half-blood, like you. And I've gotten to know Hermione this last year. She's good. Good for wizard kind. Good for Draco." "Too good for him," Harry interjected. "That goes without saying." Theo grinned. "The thing is, I had to go into hiding during the war. I didn't fight. Didn't really want to, if I'm being honest." Harry narrowed his eyes. "Must have been nice." Theo sighed. "It wasn't. Good people died because of that war. People I know. The thing is, one of my favourite subjects at Hogwarts was history of magic." "Seriously?" "It was interesting, Potter. My mother was a librarian. I grew up learning about all these things. Binns was a shite teacher, but the subject was fascinating." The Gryffindor chuckled. "Are you sure you aren't better suited to Hermione?" "Hermione can't handle all the bisexual polyamory, I'm fairly certain," Theo quipped, roaring with laughter at Potter's slightly horrified expression. "But back to my point. History shows us that none of the bad shit that happens ever started big. If Voldemort had announced 50 years ago that he was going to kill all non-purebloods and rule the wizarding world with an iron fist, 100 challengers would have tried to take him down at the jump. But he didn't. He started small, the same way Grindelwald did. Other dark wizards like Loxias or Acristus, they came out to the gate running, and they were defeated early on. They never gained the following that Grindelwald and Voldemort did." "You think Shacklebolt should be lumped in with the likes of them?" Harry asked. Theo finished his last bite and cleaned his mouth with his napkin. "I don't know everything that's going on with him, but I know enough to say he's not a good man. Does that make him evil? I'm not sure I'm willing to wait around to find out." Harry was still for several moments before nodding reluctantly. "Yes, fine. You've got the basics of Malfoy's plot to catch Shacklebolt." Theo nodded along with him. "Perfect. Tell me what I can do to help." Fixing Theo with a look of confusion, Harry shrugged. "I don't know what you can do. To be honest, I have doubts that this whole plan is going to work, even if we carry it out perfectly. If Shacklebolt says we made it all up, invented everything, the Wizengamot and the press will probably be happy to believe him over us. It wouldn't be the first time that something like that has happened." The former Slytherin's blue eyes darkened. "You mean like what happened when Voldemort returned, at the end of the Triwizard Tournament?" "Right. The Ministry, the Prophet, no one wanted to listen to me or Dumbledore. Fudge just covered up everything, and Voldemort was allowed to get stronger," Harry said. "It was much easier for the powers that be to keep insisting that everything was fine and ignore corruption and villainy. The same goes for the public. People would rather ignore the truth if there's a more sensational, easier explanation. Which story do you think sells more papers? Minister for Magic accused of corruption, or former Death Eater and the boy who lived weave web of lies to defame Minister?" Theo raised a brow at him knowingly, a gleam in his eyes. "But you got around that problem years ago." "I did, back then. But Rita Skeeter's animagus is common knowledge now. So Hermione has nothing to hold over her, and I'm fairly certain she won't lift a finger to help me. Not after all the bad-mouthing I've done of her in the press over that book she published about Dumbledore." "You might be right," Theo said, lost in speculative thought. Then he turned an excited look on Harry. "Listen, mate, Draco has made it clear that he's staying tight-lipped about all of this with me. I think he feels like I might compromise the whole thing since Kingsley is my godfather." "Wait, Kingsley Shacklebolt is your godfather?" Harry asked, incredulous. "Did I fail to mention that?" "You did," Harry growled. The curly-haired Slytherin looked abashed at Harry's growing alarm. "Oh, sorry, mate. Must have slipped my mind. Not every day that one gets to bask in the sexy glory of the Chosen One, you know. But the thing is, I have reason to believe that Kingsley has been straddling the line between good and evil for a long time. This isn't something new." Harry's eyes widened in curiosity. "What do you mean?" Theo only shook his head. "Not yet. One thing at a time. But years ago there was a good woman who ran afoul of my godfather, and if there's any way to avenge her, I'll do it. She didn't deserve what happened to her." "Who? What are we talking about now?" Harry was at a complete loss. Theo only nodded, as though coming to a decision. "Right. I may have a way to help, but if Draco doesn't let me in, I may need your help to make it work. I can count on you." Harry narrowed his eyes in distrustful annoyance. "Everything is transactional with you snakes, isn't it?" "It's called cunning, Potter. You should look into it," Theo replied with a leering smile. "You Gryffindors, always out there suffering the slings and arrows, giving away bravery and honor, and getting little in return. Don't get me wrong, it absolutely turns on us snakes, gets us all hot and bothered. But if you stick with us, we can change that." The Gryffindor grimaced. "That's kind of what I'm afraid of." Theo chuckled, and after a moment, Harry joined in. "It's nothing so nefarious. All I need is for you to let me know when you plan to meet with Kingsley. I don't plan to be there," Theo reassured the wizard at his nervous look. "But give me some advance warning. I may be able to offer you a bit of insurance." Harry looked indecisive for a moment, then sighed. "Fine. If you're not involved from the get, I'll send my Patronus when Malfoy gives the word. I guess we've got nothing else to lose. Maybe if for Colt you can talk him out of throwing us all in Azkaban, being his godson and all." He could tell from Theo's expression that the other wizard highly doubted that. Harry doubted it too. Kingsley Shacklebolt was a formidable wizard, even more than Harry would have once thought. Going against him, and by extension the entire ministry, seemed like a horrible idea. Possibly as bad an idea as aligning himself with 2 Slytherins, Harry mused as he watched Creature disapparate back to Oxford, with Theo in tow.
Who gives a fuck about an Oxford comma? I seen those English dramas too. They're cruel.
Thank you for listening to Who Gives a Fuck About an Oxford Comma by Great 78. If you enjoyed the story and would like to listen to more, please follow me on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts by searching for Silver and Copper. Or you can find me under Great 78 on Archive of Our Own.
I